Ever since acquiring OG Anunoby in a trade with the Toronto Raptors on December 30th, the Knicks have looked like one of the best teams in all of basketball. They were already on a pace to make the playoffs yet again, but since bringing Anunoby in, you can make the argument that the Knicks currently look like contenders. Not only have they gone 13-2 with Anunoby on the team, but they have the best defensive rating in the NBA and have looked like a much smoother overall unit offensively. This was to be expected, as we know RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley are great players, but they didn't really bring the defensive versatility and consistency on offense that OG does, especially when it comes to RJ. It sucked to see them go, but with the way the Knicks are playing right now, they look almost unbeatable. But what exactly has changed since bringing in OG? He's a great player and has made a massive difference, but he's not the only Knick who's stepping up during this stretch of games, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what's gone right for the Knicks on both sides of the ball and try to explain just how they've looked so unstoppable recently. If you enjoyed this type of content and are new to the channel, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Liking the video helps it perform well in the YouTube algorithm, and I'm trying to reach my new goal of 2,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season, and any help with that is greatly appreciated. Also, just wanted to apologize for the lack of content. Currently getting over the flu, so I've been obviously very out of it, but with that out of the way, let's get into it. Like I said, the Knicks have looked ridiculously good since trading for OG Anunoby. Not only has their defense been revolutionized compared to where it was before the deal, but offensively, things look the smoothest they've been in the Tom Thibodeau era. RJ Barrett was always an interesting player, as it really did seem like one week he looked like a future star, and the next he looked like a bench player. While the highs were nice, the Knicks were in desperate need of more consistency and spacing around guys like Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, and this is exactly what OG Anunoby brings to the court. RJ may have more explosive games every now and then, but his lows are going to be way worse than Anunoby, and that has been the case thus far. Sure, RJ's had some big games with the Raptors during his time there, but I think it's always been clear that he was never going to break out in New York, and the change in his consistency between the two teams is very telling of that. Now, with the Knicks having OG Anunoby, their offense looks incredible. The consistent spacing he provides makes the offense run much smoother than it ever did with Barrett, and this would explain why with Anunoby on the floor, the Knicks have an offensive rating of 124, which is in the 97th percentile, compared to when RJ was on the floor with the Knicks, it was all the way down to 116.3, which was in the 53rd percentile. RJ has been one of my favorite players in the league since being drafted, but his flaws have always been evident. He doesn't do much in the off-ball, he's limited as an on-ball creator as it is, and he really struggles with consistency as a shooter. So a lot of the time, in order for RJ to score, he'd need to have the ball in his hands for large portions of the shot clock before driving to the rim and, more likely than not, throwing up a layup. Now, with OG in the mix, the ball flows much more smoothly between Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, and instead of trying to create his own shot every possession, OG Anunoby works off of these two, and he does this incredibly well compared to RJ. That's what makes him so special for the team. It's not like the Knicks are playing so well because OG has made some massive statistical leap. He's averaging essentially the same numbers he did in Toronto. It's just the consistency and his overall offensive abilities that has made this Knicks offense finally mesh together. Aside from OG, both Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson have looked like all-stars offensively and have been nothing short of incredible this season. While Randle did have an insanely bad start to the season that I touched on in an older video, he's since come into his own and has looked like his all-NBA self again. The three-point shooting hasn't been there, but in terms of his efficiency from all over the floor, like paint, mid-range, long, short, mid-range, his numbers are pretty much the same as they always have been, so the lack of a three-point shot really isn't that big of a deal. As for Brunson, he's truly making a name for himself as arguably the best point guard in the East. While I'm definitely going to give it to Tyrese Halliburton right now, that doesn't change the fact that Brunson has been incredible, and should have been named an all-star starter. Through 44 games, Brunson's averaging around 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, while shooting 48% from the field and 42% from 3 on 6 attempts. Whether it be points, efficiency, whatever, Brunson has been in elite company, and he's probably been the biggest reason for the Knicks' offensive success this season. There are only 5 guards in the NBA this season, averaging more than 25 points per game on a true shooting percentage of 60% or higher. That being Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, and Jalen Brunson. The way Jalen Brunson's made the jump from role player to borderline superstar since signing with the Knicks is something I don't think many people saw coming. While we all expected him to get better, the jump he's made makes his 4-year, $104 million contract look like an absolute steal for the Knicks. The three-headed monster Brunson, Randle, and Anunoby have formed has surprisingly been one of the best trios in the NBA, and if Randle can hold up in the playoffs, I have a really hard time seeing some of these teams in the East stopping the Knicks. In the 582 possessions in which Randle, Brunson, and Anunoby have been on the floor, the Knicks have an offensive rating of 130.8, which is in the 99th percentile, and they have a point differential of 26.1, which is in the 100th percentile, and they have an effective field goal percentage of 61.5, which is in the 99th percentile. It literally does not get better than these three right now. Sure, it might still be a pretty small sample size, but even then, it's been 15 going on 16 games now, so it's not like the way these three are playing is drastically going to change out of nowhere. The way the Knicks have been playing offensively has been incredible, and it's really not being talked about enough compared to their defense, which I will get into right now. RJ and Quickley were both positive defensive players, especially Emmanuel Quickley, who some, including myself, believe should have made an all-defensive team last year. However, because of his size and his athletic traits, he wasn't the most versatile on that end. Now, with OG at the helm of the Knicks defense, New York has one of the most versatile and elite defensive wings in the NBA. As I mentioned before, the Knicks have the best defensive rating in the NBA since trading for OG Anunoby at 104.0. And with OG on the floor specifically, this rating goes down to 99.5. So when he's on the floor, the Knicks aren't even allowing as much as 100 points per 1,000 possessions. It's just absurd, really, when you start to think about it. There's not much I can say about OG that hasn't already been said by everyone else over the years, but the difference he's made is still mind-blowing. Again, it's not like his play has drastically changed, he just fits this team so perfectly. Alongside OG Anunoby, a really unsung hero from this Knicks defense has been Isaiah Hartenstein. The job he's done filling in for Mitchell Robinson on both sides of the ball has been huge for the Knicks, and it has probably been one of the biggest reasons we really haven't seen the team make some more moves in order to shore up their big man depth. In the 18 games he started this season, Hartenstein has averaged 7 points, 11 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block a game, while shooting 62% from the field. He's faced some fairly tough center competition in this span, and has held his own almost every time. Hartenstein's always been a solid backup big, but at this point, I could see him getting a decent chunk of change to maybe be a starter elsewhere, depending on how the rest of the season goes. Regardless, the way he's held down the paint so far has really been impressive, and it has me hopeful about just how good this team could be if Mitchell Robinson manages to come back before the end of the season. Overall, this Knicks team has looked unstoppable on both sides of the ball. They're 13-2 in their last 15 and have beaten teams like the Timberwolves, Nuggets, Sixers, and Heat, with the last 3 teams all getting beaten by double-digit points. New York is currently the 4th seed out east, but I can very easily see them moving into the top 3 if they keep this up. How far they go in the playoffs really depends on whether or not Julius will fall apart again, but based on how the team is playing right now, I think this is the best chance he's ever had to rise to the occasion in the postseason. We'll see if the Knicks end up making any more moves before the trade deadline, as personally I'd like to maybe see them make a move for a backup point guard, because the closest thing they currently have to that is Miles McBride, and while I think he's a fine player, I don't know how much I trust him in a playoff series just yet. Regardless, the Knicks are playing their best basketball yet, and it has me so excited to see where they can go come playoff time. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here. Let me know if you think the Knicks should make any trades before the deadline, and if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe so I can reach my goal of 2,000 subscribers by the end of the season. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.